Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every person's life where they have to ask themselves a difficult question: am I waiting or am I leading? Too many people spend years on the sidelines of their own life, waiting for the right time, the right approval, the right sign that it's finally safe to begin. But the truth is, the world rarely gives us permission to start. If you want to create something meaningful, if you want to lead your life instead of just existing in it, you can't follow the flow. You have to become it. Tonight, I want to speak to the part of you that's tired of holding back. The part that's ready to move even if the path isn't clear, because real change doesn't wait, it leads. Let's talk about what it truly means to stop waiting and start becoming. Most people walk through life reacting, not deciding. They follow a kind of invisible rhythm, not of their own making, but one that's been laid out by what others are doing, what the world says is right, and what seems popular at the moment. It's not clarity that leads them. It's noise. Noise comes from everywhere. It's in the conversations people have when they compare their timelines to others. It's in the social media posts telling you what success should look like, what relationship milestones you should hit by what age, what job title should impress others. It's the subtle pressure in someone's voice when they ask, "You're still single," or "You're only doing that." That's noise, and most people confuse it with guidance. The tragedy is that people don't realize they're following noise until they feel empty. They go along with the job, the relationship, the choices that everyone else approves of, only to wake up one day feeling disconnected from their own lives. They think, "I did everything right. Why does this not feel like mine?" And the answer is simple: it wasn't theirs. It was borrowed from culture, from family, from fear. Clarity, on the other hand, is quieter. It's not flashy. It doesn't compete for attention the way noise does. Clarity often speaks in stillness, in the moments you're alone, in the discomfort you feel when something is off, in the inner resistance you ignore when you're trying to fit into a plan that doesn't align with you. But because we're trained to trust volume over truth, we push clarity away. We tell ourselves that being uncomfortable must mean we're doing something wrong. But sometimes that discomfort is the only honest thing in the room. There's a kind of panic that sets in when people feel behind, not because they've actually fallen off track, but because they're using someone else's map. You see your friend posting about a new promotion, and suddenly you feel like your work isn't good enough. Someone else gets engaged and you start questioning your worth. This is the power of noise. It doesn't just distract, it distorts. It makes you doubt what was once clear. It shifts your focus from what matters to what's loud. Noise thrives on urgency. It says, "You need to have it all figured out now. You're falling behind. Do something, anything." So people rush. They say yes when they should say no. They commit to paths they haven't even thought through. They pursue goals that never belonged to them, all to escape the fear of standing still. But stillness is not failure. Stillness is where clarity grows. Clarity isn't something you find by accident. It's something you create space for. And that means stepping back from the distractions that want to define your direction. It means pausing long enough to ask hard questions. What do I actually want? What makes me feel alive? What am I doing because I think I should, not because I feel called to? Most people never ask those questions, not because they're not intelligent or self-aware, but because they're afraid of what the answers might require. Because clarity often leads to uncomfortable choices. It might mean leaving something that looks perfect on paper, but feels misaligned in your soul. It might mean disappointing people who had expectations for your life. It might mean walking alone for a while. And that kind of honesty takes more courage than most people are ready for. But the truth is, following the crowd won't protect you from regret. In fact, it often guarantees it. Because when you ignore the signals of your own life, eventually those signals turn into symptoms: burnout, disconnection, restlessness, and the haunting feeling that you're living someone else's dream. It's easy to believe the lie that everyone else has it figured out, but the more you look behind the curtain, the more you see that most people are just as confused, just as unsure, just as desperate to look certain. They're just better at playing the part, so when you step away from the noise, when you finally say, "I'm ready to hear myself," you're not falling behind. You're finally catching up to your own truth. There's a strange comfort in being part of the crowd. It gives the illusion of certainty. When you're surrounded by others making the same decisions, chasing the same goals, living life at the same pace, it feels like you're doing something right. You look to your left, look to your right, and see people just like you struggling, coping, following the same general path, and you think, well, at least I'm not alone. That sense of shared direction feels safe. But comfort isn't always clarity, and feeling surrounded doesn't mean you're moving forward. The crowd operates on collective momentum. It's not that everyone knows where they're going, it's that no one wants to stop and be the one who isn't going anywhere. There's an energy that says, just keep up, keep walking, don't fall behind. But what no one says out loud is that the direction has never been questioned. It's just inherited, assumed, and this creates a quiet tragedy, people moving together, fast and loud, but without intention. Without direction, without growth, there's safety in numbers, but not necessarily progress. Just because others are doing something doesn't mean it's right. And just because many people are headed in a certain direction doesn't mean it leads anywhere meaningful. In fact, sometimes the majority is headed towards something shallow, something unsatisfying, something disconnected from what you truly want. Most people don't realize they're stuck because they're surrounded by others who are stuck too. Everyone's busy, but no one is fulfilled. Everyone's chasing something, but no one knows why. They're measuring their lives against a standard. They didn't create promotions, timelines, appearances, and they assume that if they check off the same boxes as everyone else, they'll eventually arrive at happiness. But they don't. They arrive at burnout, at restlessness, at confusion masked as stability. The crowd doesn't like when someone stops. When you pause to reflect, to question the path, to challenge the norm, it creates discomfort. Not because you're wrong, but because your stillness reminds others of what they've been ignoring. People fear being different more than they fear being unfulfilled, so they keep moving. They keep doing what's expected. They keep fitting in even if it means shrinking. There's a difference between being surrounded and being supported. The crowd will clap for you as long as you're doing what they understand. But the moment you take a turn they wouldn't take, the applause fades. That's the moment you realize that many people don't want you to grow, they want you to stay familiar, to stay predictable, because your change challenges their comfort. So people choose to stay. They stay in relationships that feel safe but stagnant. They stay in careers that feel secure but lifeless. They stay in belief systems they've outgrown just because it's easier than asking hard questions. The fear of stepping out, of being seen, of standing alone, it overrides the call to move forward. And the longer they stay, the more their fear looks like wisdom, the more their hesitation looks like caution, the more their passivity looks like patience. But underneath all of it is fear, not logic. Not clarity, just fear of what they might lose if they stop blending in. Growth doesn't happen in the center of the crowd. It happens on the edge, in the space where things feel unclear, where paths haven't been paved, where you're forced to listen to yourself. And that's not always loud or glamorous. It's often quiet, uncertain, lonely even, but it's real, and real always moves you forward. The crowd may feel like a shield, but it can become a cage. It gives you company, but it can rob you of individuality. It gives you noise, but rarely gives you direction, and the most heartbreaking part is that by the time most people realize they've been standing still, years have passed. Their lives have been lived on someone else's terms. Their choices were never really theirs. They just didn't want to be the one who stepped away. But movement isn't progress unless it's intentional. Being busy isn't the same as becoming better. Following the crowd doesn't guarantee that you're headed somewhere meaningful. It only guarantees that you won't be alone while avoiding your truth. And eventually, truth is the only thing that can carry you forward. There's a difference between looking strong and actually being strong. Between appearing successful and truly feeling fulfilled. A lot of people spend their entire lives chasing approval, thinking that if enough people applaud them, validate them, or like them, they'll finally feel powerful. But real power doesn't come from being seen. A certain way it comes from being aligned with who you are, even when no one's watching. Approval is addictive. It's instant, external, and often loud. When someone praises your choices, when your decisions fit into what society expects, when others validate your path, it gives you a temporary high. It feels like confirmation that you're doing something right. But the problem with approval is that it shifts, it's conditional. One day people love what you're doing, the next they question it. If your sense of direction depends on their response, your confidence will always be at the mercy of the crowd. Alignment, on the other hand, is internal. It's rooted. It doesn't require a round of applause to feel meaningful. It's the quiet certainty that the choices you're making come from a place of honesty, not performance. Alignment means your values match your actions. It means you're not just doing what looks good, you're doing what feels right, and that kind of congruence builds a foundation no opinion can shake. People who live for approval often find themselves lost. They become experts in reading the room, adapting to fit in, saying the right thing at the right time, even if it doesn't match what they truly believe. They become disconnected from their own voice because they are so used to adjusting their tone to match someone else's expectations. Over time, this doesn't just exhaust them, it erodes them. They forget what they even stand for because they've spent so long trying to be what others want. When you chase approval, you live with a constant undercurrent of anxiety. Because deep down, you know your sense of worth is borrowed. It depends on the reaction of people who don't really know you. It depends on trends that change. It depends on staying agreeable, digestible, and safe. But alignment, that's where power begins, because when your choices reflect who you really are, you don't need everyone to understand you. You don't need permission to keep going. You stop second guessing yourself because your decisions aren't based on what will get the most likes. They're based on what brings you peace. You walk into rooms without shrinking because you're no longer looking for someone else to make you feel worthy of being there. You speak with clarity because you're not editing your truth to be more acceptable. You trust your gut more than the crowd, and that's when something amazing happens. Your confidence becomes unshakable. Not because everyone agrees with you, but because you finally agree with yourself. Alignment gives you consistency, not perfection, not performance, consistency. It allows you to show up the same way in different environments because you're not switching roles to meet expectations. You're just being you. And the people who resonate with that, they find you. The people who don't, they fall away. And that's a good thing, because the more aligned you become, the less space you have for relationships that require you to abandon yourself to maintain them. Real power is subtle. It's not about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the clearest. It's about knowing you can walk away from anything that asks you to betray yourself, even if walking away means disappointing someone else. Approval wants you to stay agreeable, alignment invites you to stay authentic, and authenticity will always outlast applause. Most people wait for confidence to come from the outside. They wait for the promotion, the relationship, the praise, the attention. But confidence rooted in alignment doesn't need a trigger. It lives in your ability to choose what's true over what's popular, to walk away when something doesn't feel right, even if it looks perfect on paper. To make the brave decision quietly, with no spotlight, because you know it honors the person you're becoming. We're taught, almost without realizing it, to wait for the right moment, wait for permission. Wait until we feel ready, wait until someone else sees our potential before we act on it. But there comes a time when you realize that waiting is no longer patience, it's avoidance, that the life you want isn't going to come find you. You have to become the kind of person who moves, even without the guarantees, even without the cheerleaders, even without the map. That's what it means to become the flow. You don't follow the path, you create it. There's something powerful about not waiting to be chosen, about standing up and choosing yourself. Most people are quietly waiting for someone else to hand them an opportunity, a sign, a green light. They're holding back because they're afraid of stepping into something before it looks perfect, before they feel confident, before someone else validates their decision. But leadership doesn't wait for applause. It shows up before anyone is watching, and that's why it's rare, because it's rooted in courage, not comfort. When you become the flow, you stop asking, "Is this allowed?" and start asking, "Is this aligned?" You don't wait for the crowd to move so you can follow. You become the one who shifts the energy. You become the one who goes first, not because it's easy, not because it's obvious, but because something inside you knows that forward is the only direction worth choosing. You can't keep living in cycles of almost starting, almost changing, almost becoming. At some point, you have to cross the threshold between thinking and doing, between preparing and stepping in. Becoming the flow is about embracing movement even when no one else is moving with you. It's about realizing that momentum doesn't come from motivation. It comes from motion. The moment you act, you generate clarity. The moment you move, you start to separate the real fears from the imagined ones. But as long as you wait, you stay stuck in the guessing game. You start asking too many people for their opinion. You second, guess your instincts. You get lost in what if scenarios that haven't even happened yet. And all of that creates more resistance, more hesitation, more fear. People often say they're waiting for the right moment, but what they're really waiting for is certainty. And the hard truth is, certainty is a luxury you rarely get at the beginning. It's something you build through experience, not something that arrives at your doorstep before you take action. If you're constantly waiting to feel 100% ready, you'll wait forever. Readiness is not a feeling, it's a decision. You decide to begin even while you're still afraid. You decide to show up even while you're still unsure. And in that decision, you begin to embody your own authority. When you stop waiting and start moving, you begin to lead in a quiet, powerful way. You stop outsourcing your direction to others. You stop needing validation to keep going. You begin to trust the deeper part of yourself that already knows what needs to be done. And when others see that, when they witness someone who's not hesitating, not over-explaining, not looking for constant reassurance, it stirs something in them, because deep down, most people are tired of waiting too. They're just waiting for someone else to go first. When you become the flow, you give people permission to do the same. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present, being in motion, taking the next step, even if the final destination isn't clear yet. You're not trying to control the outcome. You're committing to the process, and the process is where growth happens, where strength is built, where self-respect is earned. People who lead their lives from flow don't always have loud victories. They don't always have instant results, but they have something deeper, peace, integrity, a quiet knowing that they're not stuck waiting for life to begin. They're already in it, already shaping it, already becoming. And in the end, that's what separates those who stay stuck from those who evolve. One keeps asking, when will it be my time? The other decides, it's my time the moment I choose to move. If this message stirred something in you, if it reminded you that you don't need to wait for the perfect moment to lead your life, then don't just let it pass by. Take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you never miss a conversation that calls you forward. Because the more we grow together, the more we become the kind of people who stop waiting and start leading. Thank you for watching, and more importantly, for showing up for yourself today. See you in the next one.